Worldwide, 30% of food produced for human consumption is either lost or wasted. To put in perspective how much that is, annually, that's 1.3 billion tons of food. That's $1 trillion in economic spending. That's 900 billion in social costs, and that's 700 billion in environmental costs. Some people say that this is the age of biology. Farmers such as myself and scientists throughout the world are really starting to look back to nature for designs that we can take, we can implement, and we can adapt to meet the needs of a growing population. Now let's take a look at the fly. It's agreeably unagreeable. They spread disease, they ruin food. What good are they? What do they do? Well, actually, they serve a pretty important function. See, they're nature's waste management system. They quickly and efficiently convert any organic decaying matter into a nutrient-rich superfood. They're high in protein, they're high in fat, in calcium, in iron, micronutrients, and they have all sorts of good stuff. I just wish they didn't have to be so pesky. Luckily, there's a good fly. I just found him. Meet Hermetia illucens. This is a black soldier fly, also known as the privy fly. This fly doesn't have any mouth parts, so he doesn't eat, he doesn't land on food, the females don't even lay eggs in food. They also don't bite, they don't sting. You can't tell from the picture, but they're about 3/4 of an inch long. They're native to the Americas, and they're distributed throughout tropical, subtropical, and even in some warmer temperate regions. But what really makes them so cool is all of their fascinating applications. They're being used in the fish farming industry to replace some soy and fish meal, and they're having great success there. Some people are thinking that this fly could be used to replace all sorts of soy and all sorts of other protein sources in animal feed, and even in countries where entomophagy, which is a fancy word for insect eating, is a very common practice. In countries that practice entomophagy, insects are a very valuable source of protein, and a fly like this that can convert any biological matter into this rich superfood it would make the food system, it would make the foodways of those nations much more stable. And especially in a place that doesn't have the means or the resources for proper sanitation and proper waste management, these flies can come in really handy there. One thing about using them for food is that while they are really nutrient rich and really good in those aspects, they're also really good at sequestering heavy metals. And let's see, November 2019, Atiogbe and others published a paper called Effectiveness of Black Soldier Fly in Composting Mercury-Contaminated Organic Waste. And they published this in the Scientific African. What they found, well, how they did it was they inoculated a substrate with mercury, and then they treated it by putting black soldier fly larvae in there. Once they were done, they tested both the substrate and the larva, and they found that the larva contained extremely high content of mercury, but the substrate actually contained so little mercury that it could actually pass the qualifications for the soil content or the mercury content in soils. So, while they can be used for feed, they have to be regulated and they have to be tested. Another thing that they're useful for is their exoskeleton contains a polymer chain called chitin, And chitin is a really useful substance. It's used in all sorts of different industrial applications, from surgical sutures to contact lenses. And if these are used to clean out a soil or clean out soils, the contaminated soldier flies can be used for their chitin, and then also they have really high fat contents, so the fat can be used for biofuel. Another neat aspect about them is their ability to do what's called auto-harvest. What I mean by that is that when the larvae are ready to pupate, they go on a migration. They try to climb upwards to dry soil. All you have to do to harvest these is provide them with a ramp, and they will crawl wherever you lead the ramp to. Another feature that makes them really good for agriculture is that they not only can survive in really cramped conditions, but they prefer it. And with matters of ethics these days, and land use, many farmers struggle to provide adequate space for their animals, and soldier flies would just excel at being completely, totally packed together, because that's what they like. Another point. Not only do soldier flies not transmit diseases, but they actually help stop the spread of diseases. On July 2nd, 2014, Leylander and others published a paper in Agronomy for Sustainable Development entitled High Waste to Biomass Conversion and Efficient Salmonella Species Reduction Using Black Soldier Fly for Waste and Recycling. What they did was they inoculated soil and they inoculated manure with salmonella and different strains of viruses. And they found that when they came back, the manures treated with black soldier fly had significantly lowered salmonella counts and virus counts. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning about the black soldier fly, and if you want to raise your own, all you need is a bug net like this one. They're super efficient composters. You can feed them to all sorts of different animals. They're up and coming, that you're going to see them probably in the near future in all sorts of different applications. So stay tuned.